The name Al Pacino echoes through the corridors of cinematic history. For more than 5 decades, he reigned as a titan, a master of his craft, an icon whose presence on screen defined generations. From the dimly lit corners of The Godfather to the roaring chaos of Scarface, he was the heartbeat of Hollywood's golden age. But behind the applause, the Oscars, and the eternal glory lies a story that is rarely told, a story drenched in loneliness, sacrifice, and pain. At 85 years old, Al Pacino stands as one of the last living giants of a bygone era. Yet, his life today is a far cry from the glory days. The tragedy of Al Pacino is not about scandal or disgrace, it's about the crushing weight of time, the emptiness that comes when the lights dim, and the bitter truth that fame, no matter how dazzling, cannot protect a man from the inevitabilities of life. In this video, we dive deep into the heart of Al Pacino's journey. The boy from East Harlem who clawed his way out of poverty, the young actor who defied all odds to conquer Hollywood, and the legend who now stares at his own mortality. Prepare yourself for a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about success, love, and happiness. Because at 85, the tragedy of Al Pacino is beyond heartbreaking. Before the fame, before the cameras, before the world even knew his name, Alfredo James Pacino was just another kid on the tough streets of East Harlem and later the Bronx. Born on April 25, 1940, Al grew up in a broken home. His parents separated when he was only 2 years old, leaving him to be raised by his mother, Rose, and his grandparents. Life was far from easy. They were poor, so poor that young Al often wandered the streets with friends because home offered little more than 4 walls and silence. He was nicknamed Sonny by his friends, a small light in an otherwise harsh reality. Pacino has often recalled those days, saying, "I knew poverty. I knew what it felt like to have nothing. And maybe that's why I became an actor, because acting gave me everything I didn't have." But even as a boy, he wasn't interested in sports or academics like other kids. What drew him was performance, imitating voices, telling stories, making people laugh. Deep inside, a dream was quietly taking root, a dream to escape the chains of poverty and become someone the world would never forget. Yet, there was pain lurking behind the dream. Al's relationship with his mother was complicated. She adored him, but the struggles of life weighed heavily on her. When she died suddenly when Al was just 22 years old, it shattered him completely. Her death became a wound that never truly healed. That grief, that loneliness, that desperation, it would later become the raw material for some of the most powerful performances in film history. The road to Hollywood was long and merciless. After high school, Pacino worked odd jobs: messenger, busboy, janitor, anything to pay for acting classes. He studied at the legendary Actors Studio under the guidance of Lee Strasberg, the godfather of method acting. But those early years were brutal. Pacino was rejected over and over again. He couldn't get roles because of his look, his accent, his intense style. For a time, he was homeless, sleeping on park benches, surviving on a few dollars a day. He even said once, "There were days I didn't know where my next meal would come from. But I couldn't give up. Acting was the only thing I had." Then came 1972, the year that would change everything. Director Francis Ford Coppola fought tooth and nail to cast Pacino as Michael Corleone in The Godfather. The studio didn't want him. They said he was too short, too unknown. But Coppola saw something no one else did: a fire, a vulnerability, a quiet power. When The Godfather hit theaters, the world changed overnight. Pacino was no longer a struggling actor, he was a star. His performance was electric, earning him an Academy Award nomination and global fame. But with fame came a new kind of struggle: the loss of privacy, the overwhelming pressure to stay on top, and the gnawing fear that one wrong move could destroy everything he had fought for. Success is a double-edged sword. On one hand, Pacino was celebrated as one of the greatest actors alive. On the other, he was drowning in expectations. The Godfather led to Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, Scarface, and a string of performances that solidified his place in history. But behind the scenes, Al Pacino was battling inner demons. The intensity he brought to his roles consumed him. He once admitted that acting wasn't just a job, it was an addiction, something that took over his mind and soul. He worked tirelessly, sometimes going without sleep, losing himself in characters until he forgot who he really was. His relationships began to suffer. Friends drifted away. Love came and went. Fame, as intoxicating as it was, left him empty inside. "You think success will make you happy," Pacino once said, "but it doesn't. It just makes you more aware of what you don't have." And what he didn't have was stability, peace, and a true sense of belonging. As the 1970s ended, Al Pacino was at the peak of his career, but his personal life was already beginning to unravel. And what followed in the decades to come would be a journey filled with heartbreak, controversy, and the haunting realization that even legends cannot escape the weight of time. Al Pacino's rise to the top was nothing short of meteoric. After The Godfather, he became Hollywood royalty, starring in films that are now etched into cinematic history. Serpico, 1973, Dog Day Afternoon, 1975, and Justice for All, 1979, and the cult classic Scarface, 1983. Each role showcased his unmatched versatility and magnetic presence. The world adored him. Critics hailed him as a genius. His name became synonymous with excellence in acting. He earned 9 Academy Award nominations, finally winning his first Oscar for Scent of a Woman in 1993. Golden Globes, Tony Awards, Lifetime Achievement honors, the accolades kept coming. But what the world didn't see was the cost of that perfection. Al Pacino was not an actor who just memorized lines. He became the character, mind, body, and soul. This level of intensity drained him emotionally, leaving scars that never healed. "When you give everything to a role," Pacino once said, "you lose a part of yourself. And sometimes, you can't get it back." Behind the cameras, Al was exhausted, lonely, and haunted by self-doubt. Every success raised the bar higher. Every award made the next challenge even more terrifying. The pressure to maintain greatness was crushing, and in chasing that perfection, Al Pacino sacrificed something far more valuable: his peace of mind. The irony of fame is cruel. The more he achieved, the emptier he felt. He had the world at his feet, yet when the lights went out, he often found himself sitting alone, wondering if it was all worth it. Al Pacino was a legend on screen, but in matters of the heart, his story was far from a Hollywood fairy tale. Despite countless romances and deep relationships, he never married. Why? Pacino himself gave the answer in an interview. "Marriage? I never felt it was for me. Maybe I was afraid. Afraid of losing myself, or afraid of losing someone else." His most famous love affair was with Diane Keaton, his co-star in the Godfather trilogy. They were electric together, on screen and off. Diane adored him, but his inability to commit tore them apart. Years later, she admitted that breaking up with Al was one of the hardest decisions of her life. Then came other relationships: Tuesday Weld, Jill Clayburgh, Beverly D'Angelo, and later Lucilla Sola, who was decades younger than him. Each relationship started with passion but ended in heartbreak. Pacino's perfectionism, his obsession with work, and his fear of commitment made it impossible for him to hold on to love. The tabloids had a field day when, at 83 years old, Pacino welcomed a child with Noor Al-Fallah, a woman 54 years his junior. The world reacted with shock, criticism, and ridicule. Some called it selfish, others called it legendary. But what did Al think? Behind the headlines, friends say he was overwhelmed, torn between the joy of fatherhood and the reality of his own mortality. "I never thought I'd have a child at this age," he allegedly confided to a close friend. But life is unpredictable. For all his flaws in relationships, there's one role Pacino took seriously: being a father. He has 4 children: Julie Marie, born in 1989 with acting coach Jan Tarrant, and twins Anton James and Olivia Rose, born in 2001 with actress Beverly D'Angelo. And now, his youngest son, born in 2023 with Noor Al-Fallah. Pacino often said that fatherhood was the most profound experience of his life. "My kids keep me alive," he once said. "They remind me why I'm still here." But the reality is heartbreaking. At 85, Pacino knows his time is limited. He worries about leaving his youngest child without a father figure. Friends say he has become deeply emotional in recent years, often reflecting on the choices he made and the time he lost. "I've missed things," he admitted in an interview. "When you're young, you think you have time. And then one day you realize time is gone." Despite the joy his children bring, Pacino struggles with guilt. The guilt of not being present enough when his older kids were growing up, the guilt of being an old father who might not live to see his youngest son grow into a man. For decades, Al Pacino was celebrated for his raw intensity on screen, but very few knew that some of that intensity was born from real-life struggles. Behind the charm and the legendary performances was a man grappling with inner demons. Pacino himself has admitted that his younger years were wild. The pressure of sudden fame, the grueling schedule, and the demands of perfection pushed him to dangerous extremes. There were whispers of substance abuse during the height of his fame in the late 1970s and early 1980s, and while Pacino rarely discussed specifics, those who knew him confirm he battled the temptations of Hollywood's dark side. "I wasn't immune to what was happening around me," he once confessed. "There were parties, there were things, but I always knew I had to survive." But even if he avoided the worst of addiction, he could not escape the toll fame took on his mental health. Anxiety and depression often lurked in the shadows of his success. He admitted in interviews that he spent long stretches of his life in isolation, consumed by fear of failure and haunted by the loss of loved ones. There were times when he disappeared from Hollywood for years, most notably in the early 1980s, because the fame, the expectations, and the pressure became unbearable. Those breaks weren't vacations, they were survival. He explained it years later. I needed to step away because I was losing myself. Acting is like a drug. It gives you a high, but when it's gone, you crash. This struggle followed him into his later years. Even today, at 85, Pacino wrestles with the ghosts of regret, anxiety about aging, and the loneliness that fame could never cure. To the outside world, Al Pacino is a man of wealth, a Hollywood icon with a net worth estimated at over $120 million. But behind the glittering numbers lies a reality that shocked even his closest fans. Al Pacino has faced financial troubles more than once in his life. Over the years, Pacino has earned hundreds of millions from films, endorsements, and stage performances. Yet, maintaining a Hollywood lifestyle, multiple homes, luxury travel, legal battles, and child support came at a staggering cost. His long legal dispute with Beverly D'Angelo over custody and support of their twins alone was a financial strain. And then there were lawsuits, former business managers accusing him of unpaid commissions, investment losses, and bad financial decisions. Hollywood insiders claimed that at one point, Pacino's fortune nearly vanished because of mismanagement. "People think you can't go broke if you're famous," Pacino once said. But fame doesn't pay bills. Money disappears faster than you think. Even now, reports suggest Pacino continues to work, taking film roles, commercials, and even attending paid events, not just for passion, but because financial stability has been an ongoing concern. For a man who gave so much to his art, this truth is heartbreaking. Even legends are not immune to financial fragility. Perhaps the most painful chapter of Al Pacino's life is the one he is living now, the battle against time. At 85 years old, Pacino is not the vibrant, fiery actor the world remembers. His once commanding presence has softened. His gait is slower, his energy reserved. For years, rumors have swirled about his health. Some say he struggles with chronic pain from years of physically demanding roles. Others speculate vision problems, hearing loss, and heart-related issues. While Pacino has never publicly confirmed major illnesses, his frail appearances at recent events have sparked concern among fans. Friends close to him reveal that Al tires easily and often declines social gatherings. He spends most of his time at home, surrounded by memories of a life that feels both glorious and distant. The cruelest irony? The man who gave the world so much life on screen now wrestles with the slow erosion of his own vitality. And perhaps what hurts Pacino the most is not the physical pain, but the emotional weight of knowing that time is slipping away. "You don't think about age when you're young," he said in an interview. "But one day you wake up, and you're old. And you wonder where it all went." Every new wrinkle, every ache, every friend who passes away reminds him of a truth no one can escape: even the greatest stars fade. There was a time when the name Al Pacino alone could carry a film. Studios begged for his signature on contracts. Directors designed roles with him in mind. He was Hollywood's king, a man whose every move shaped the industry. But time changes everything, even for legends. As the 2000s gave way to a new era, Hollywood became obsessed with youth, franchises, and superhero universes. The gritty, character-driven dramas that defined Pacino's career were fading. Casting agents were no longer calling him for the lead roles. They were offering supporting parts, cameos, or mentor figures. For Pacino, it was a bitter pill to swallow. He once admitted, "There comes a time when you're not the first choice anymore. And that's hard. Because acting is what I am. Without it, who am I?" His filmography in recent years tells the story. Long gaps between projects, occasional streaming roles, and a struggle to stay relevant in an industry that once worshipped him. Friends say Pacino sometimes expressed frustration at being overlooked for major projects that went to younger stars with less talent but more Instagram followers. The man who built his empire on talent and craft now finds himself fighting for relevance in a world driven by algorithms and trends. And while Pacino remains a legend, he knows the truth: Hollywood is moving on without him. Fame is the loudest noise in the world. But when the noise fades, what remains is silence. For Al Pacino, that silence is deafening. At 85, Pacino lives in a world few can imagine. A life surrounded by wealth, yet overshadowed by isolation. In interviews, he has hinted at his loneliness. "You can have the world. You can have the applause. But at the end of the day, you're alone." And that's the hardest part. Pacino never married, and while he has children, they have their own lives. His youngest son is still a baby, but Pacino knows deep inside that he may not live to see the boy grow up. This thought torments him. Nights are the hardest. Friends describe him as a man who often sits in his Los Angeles home, watching old movies, sometimes his own, reflecting on a life of glory and regret. He wonders if he made the right choices. Should he have married? Should he have slowed down to enjoy life instead of chasing roles? When you're young, you think you have forever, he said once. But you don't. And one day, you wake up and realize the people you love are gone, and you're next. Loneliness for Pacino is not just being alone. It's the crushing weight of knowing that no one, not even a legend, can outrun time. The passage of time takes everything: youth, health, and eventually the people you love most. For Pacino, this truth has been relentless. In the past 2 decades, he has buried friends who were once his brothers in arms in Hollywood. James Caan, Robert Evans, John Cazale, and so many others who shaped his life and career. Each funeral was a painful reminder that his circle was shrinking. Pacino often speaks about John Cazale, the brilliant actor who played Fredo in The Godfather. Cazale died of cancer at just 42, a loss Pacino never fully recovered from. Decades later, losing James Caan, his co-star and lifelong friend, was another devastating blow. "You start to feel like the last one standing," Pacino confided in an interview. And that's a lonely place to be. These losses have left scars on Pacino's heart. He avoids large gatherings now because they remind him of who's missing. The laughter they shared, the stories they told. Those moments live only in his memory, and even those memories are beginning to fade with age. Even legends are not immune to scandal. In his later years, Pacino has faced public scrutiny, not for drugs or crime, but for his personal choices, especially his relationships with women decades younger than him. When news broke that Pacino, at 83, was expecting a child with Noor Al-Fallah, 54 years his junior, the internet exploded. Critics called it creepy, inappropriate, even selfish. Memes circulated, jokes went viral, and suddenly Pacino's private life became global gossip. The backlash hurt him deeply. Friends say he was stunned by the cruelty of the comments. But he defended himself. "Love doesn't know age. It happens when it happens," he told a close confidant. This wasn't the first time Pacino faced controversy. Over the years, rumors of tension on film sets, alleged diva behavior, and financial disputes made headlines. But these stories, often exaggerated, overshadowed his true nature. A man passionate about his craft, struggling to navigate a world that loves to build icons up only to tear them down. For Pacino, these scandals were more than just headlines. They were wounds that cut deep, proof that no matter how much you've given to the world will still judge you without mercy. Despite age, despite criticism, Pacino never stopped acting. Because for him, acting wasn't a job, it was oxygen. And even in his twilight years, he fought to prove he still had fire left. In 2019, he delivered a powerful performance in Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, earning yet another Oscar nomination at the age of 79. Later, he appeared in House of Gucci, 2021, and the acclaimed series Hunters on Amazon. Each role was a statement: "I'm still here. I can still do this." But the truth was harsh. Acting at 80+ was grueling. His stamina wasn't what it used to be. Memorizing lines took longer. Long shooting days left him drained. And the roles offered were no longer the commanding leads of his youth. They were side characters, mentors, fading figures. Pacino accepted this reality with grace, but not without pain. Behind the camera, he sometimes broke down, confessing to friends, "I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of not being needed anymore." And yet, despite everything, the health struggles, the criticism, the loneliness, Pacino refuses to stop. Because even now, in the twilight of his life, the boy from East Harlem still burns with the same fire that carried him from the Bronx to Hollywood. Al Pacino's life is a paradox. A man who lived like royalty but often worried about the future. Today, his estimated net worth hovers around $120 million, a fortune built from decades of legendary performances, Broadway triumphs, and iconic films that reshaped cinema forever. But even a fortune this vast has complications. Pacino's financial history is filled with turbulence. Lawsuits from former business partners, costly settlements, and years of lavish spending. Now, at 85, a haunting question looms: who will inherit Al Pacino's legacy, and his wealth? Pacino has 4 children from different relationships. Julie Marie, from his early relationship with acting coach Jan Tarrant. Anton James and Olivia Rose, twins, born 2001, from actress Beverly D'Angelo. His youngest son, born in 2023, with Noor Al-Fallah. Dividing such wealth between multiple heirs, and across generations, is no easy task. Sources close to Pacino say he has already begun working on his estate plan, determined to avoid the bitter feuds that tore other Hollywood families apart. But whispers of tension have surfaced. Some speculate that his older children fear being overshadowed by the newborn son. Others wonder if Noor Al-Fallah, decades younger than Pacino, could secure a massive share of his estate. These rumors pain Pacino deeply. Friends say he despises money disputes and fears the idea of his children fighting after he's gone. For a man who spent his life searching for peace, the thought of leaving behind chaos is a tragedy he hopes to prevent. Yet, even with these plans in motion, one question remains unanswered. Will his fortune be a blessing or a curse, when he is no longer here to keep the family together? Few things terrify a man like the ticking clock. For Al Pacino, the concept of mortality has gone from an abstract thought to a daily reality. At 85, every day is precious, and every night brings reflections that cut deep. In interviews, Pacino has opened up about aging in a way few legends dare to. You think you have forever. But then one day, you look around, and most of the people you loved are gone. And you realize, you're next. He often admits his greatest fear is not death itself, but dying alone. Despite relationships, fame and fatherhood, Pacino has never had a lifelong partner by his side. The thought of leaving this world without someone holding his hand, without someone whispering goodbye, chills him to the core. His final wishes? Friends reveal Pacino hopes for something simple: to be remembered as an actor who gave everything, and as a father who loved his children, even if he wasn't perfect. He wants no grand spectacle, no Hollywood circus, just peace. But regret hangs heavy over his heart. He has spoken candidly about wishing he had slowed down, spent more time with his kids, and allowed love to truly take root.
"I've made mistakes," he confessed. "A lot of them.
And I can't get that time back." Facing the end is the hardest role Pacino has ever played, because there is no script, no director, no second take. There is only the quiet truth that even legends cannot escape the darkness of the final curtain. When Al Pacino's time comes, and it will, Hollywood will tremble. The world will stop, headlines will scream, and tributes will flood every screen. Because Pacino is not just an actor, he is an era. Directors will recount how his performances changed storytelling forever. Actors, young and old, will bow their heads, admitting that without Pacino, they might never have pursued the craft. Fans will weep, revisiting the roles that shaped their lives: Michael Corleone's cold gaze, Tony Montana's fiery ambition, Frank Slade's unforgettable hoo-ah. But beyond the tributes, beyond the Oscars and accolades, his passing will leave a void no one can fill. Because there will never be another Al Pacino. Not in this lifetime, not in any lifetime. For those who grew up watching him, the loss will feel personal, like saying goodbye to a piece of their own history. Social media will ignite with clips, quotes, and stories, reminding the world that greatness doesn't die, it echoes through time. And in the quiet corners of Hollywood, the few remaining giants of Pacino's generation will feel it the most, because his death will not just mark the end of a man, but the end of an era. Al Pacino may fear the end, but his art will never know it. His name will live on in film schools, on theater stages, and in the hearts of actors yet to be born. Think of his roles: Scarface, The Godfather, Scent of a Woman, Heat. These aren't just films. They're monuments in cinema's history. Generations from now, young actors will study Pacino's monologues, his intensity, his fearless vulnerability. Directors will point to his work as the gold standard of storytelling. Because Pacino didn't just act, he transformed. He gave voice to the voiceless, power to the powerless, and soul to characters that might have been forgotten. He turned dialogue into poetry, silence into thunder. As long as there is film, there will be Pacino. His shadow will stretch across every screen, reminding us that true greatness isn't measured by fame or fortune, it's measured by impact. And in that sense, Al Pacino will never truly die. Because legends don't fade, they live forever in the stories they tell. Thank you for watching this journey into the life of a true legend, Al Pacino. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on your favorite icons. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an update. What's your favorite Al Pacino moment? Let us know in the comments below.